Here, naturally, improvements of exchanges, approval.
Good evening, everyone. Today, we're gonna talk in a different format. I, as Alexander, acting from the viewer side, will be asking Evgeny Levin tricky, complicated questions. Evgeny Levin, in turn, will answer them and demonstrate on his screen, explaining certain points. I prepared a list of questions from my side. We go through them, probably present this in the form of some kind of a podcast. We try to choose the trickiest and most difficult questions, the one that only he can answer. So I pass to the Evgeny. Yes, good evening, everyone. Today the format will be specific nature, question and answer. So yes, Alexander, prepare the questions as I understand. And of course, I don't know much of them. Some of the questions we discussed beforehand, but about 50% I absolutely have no idea. Neither the question nor accordingly the answers, so I'll be answering them at the moment. So let's get started with the first question, so kind of opening one. Probably we'll start with the general questions. What type of arbitrage do you use in Arb-Core? In fact, there are many types of arbitrage. Arbitrage can also take place on text, on DEX, through bridges. So in reality, there are many strategies. And the current moment we work with text exchanges. Centralized exchanges. And we use synchronous arbitrage. So what is it? For example, there's a cycle arbitrage, right? I briefly explained how it works and why it's not convenient to use now and what synchronous mean. The same analogy for comparison. We worked 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years, when we started our activity in arbitrage, and at that moment, the cycle arbitrage was very relevant. We would buy one exchange, transfer to another exchange, sell there, and why was such a strategy relevant then? Because exchanges didn't manage to keep up with each other price positions, they weren't that many bot-based elements and the exchange themselves, and accordingly these allowed high-quality cycle arbitrage. Then of course, over the time, year after year, naturally improvements of exchanges, improvements of the exchange segment, various technologies, including security, that's how we came to a certain conclusion that cycle arbitrage becomes unprofitable and inconvenient, because while you are transferring from one exchange to another, the price can change and you cannot just fail to earn, you can get in minus. If we start considering such type of cycle arbitrage, then what is it? And it's when at the same moment we send orders to one exchange to buy and to another exchange to sell in equal amounts. Essentially, how does the flows work? We send 50,000 USDT, for example on Max, and perform conversion, a kind of a swap. We buy Solana, and accordingly we send the equivalent of $50,000 in Solana to Gate. And accordingly, we exchange Solana back into USDT. And at that moment, the difference, a certain spread is formed. And this spread, accordingly, the transaction hash we already broadcast in personal dashboard. So, in fact, that's the answer to the first question. The current moment synchronous arbitrage is quite profitable from the point of view of profitability, because it happens instantly, and from the point of security, because the transactions happens here and now at one moment on two exchanges simultaneously at the same time, which reduce the risk of losing the asset and similar things. We also save a lot of time on that. But yes, I understand that we go in more into details about the system itself, what's happening under the engine, for those partners who would like to see not just the dashboard, but actually understand it. Yes, I'm sure that the exchange that we mentioned, we analyzed them again during the Zoom. The second question is also important one and it comes up quite often. What arbitrage bots does the company use? Okay, since we already on the Zoom, I had a technical breakdown prepared and I won't focus on it for too long, but I will now share my screen and let's quickly go through which bots are used, how many there are, and what are their qualities. Just briefly, to the point, because this information will, in any case, be published over the time on the website as an FAQ. By the way, these questions you're asking now, I think we'll build a certain model from them and add it to the FAQ section where people will be able to read in details about each strategy and each bot. After this Zoom, I think, we will get to it, pass to the technical department so they can do it. One moment, I just share the screen. Can you see? One moment, still loading. Great, I can see. Okay, let me refresh the page. Yes, great. So, again, this structure is made more for me right? More for me and more to show the audience how this works. When we recorded the first technical Zoom, we actually did it precisely to be able to explain complex things in simple words. In the left column, we have the arbitrage bots as such, the ones we trade with, the one we work with, which are implemented on the exchanges. These are classic arbitrage bots, let's call them that. Arbitrage bots with asset transfers. Again, we'll describe everything in details. We will write it all on the website. There we can click through them and see what this or that bot represent. I won't focus on that. I repeat it once again, we publish it on the website. Right now I'm just showing the model. Briefly speaking, these three bots are the main ones. These three bots are the bots that control these bots. And the last one is actually the most core bots, kind of a central bot, which controls all bots in order to prevent loss of funds for the partner and accordingly for the company. Therefore, in more detail about all models, we will publish them on the website, once again, where people will be able to get know with information and understand more deeply and clearly how it works. Next, there is the code, how we connect to the exchange. Those who understand will understand. Those who don't, well, you can see it at this stage at least. There is a software bot for each specific bot. We open it, they're completely different in their own way, but in principle, you can review them as well. And API report. Essentially, all bots are now integrated because during the first recording, those three bots were still in a testing stage, how they react to one situation or another. Now all of them have been fully added. And here, there is a report. For example, if we take most recent ones, there are 26. Here are our latest trades, where there is success and where there is status that the trade is impossible for certain reasons, because the bots detected a specific error. And then, so to speak, an operator gets involved. He can execute the trade if one level is critical, he checks it, right? If, for example, the indicator goes to level 3, then of course this trade doesn't even start. And objectively, this is all shown in dashboard. We have a certain time frame according to which a trade is formed. And there's a specific time. I think many partners have asked why initially one trade is formed and then at the moment where it's not yet fully formed, the position changes, right? This is exactly the position change, because the bot sees certain risk element in the current execution, so accordingly there is a change in both the exchanges and the quotes. So those who carefully watch the dashboard will definitely notice this, and it happens often, but again, we won't dwell on this for long, so 7 arbitrage bots are what we use at the current moment. And of course, when arbitrage on DEX is added, there will be its own strategies, smart contracts will be opened as well, and we will analyze that too. Right here, right now, we're focusing specifically on a sex arbitrage. Next question, please. Great, so let's probably move on to the more in-depth pool of questions. How many servers are there and which countries are they located? Okay, regarding the server side, essentially at the moment we're using around 26 exchanges on a sex site, and accordingly 26 locations where the servers are located. For example, we take Bybit. Bybit is Singapore and Amazon. Here's the characteristics of this server, and here essentially is the time frame for signal delivery. Everything is green, in fact we can work with it. Here we can see the same thing, right? Amazon, Canada, and there's more factors. Country, characteristics, and the provider itself, and the response time that we have. We can click through all this. Naturally, at the bottom, there is a server-to-server usage algorithm. Our server connected directly to the exchange, and how exactly this connection implemented. Well, in fact, we don't have any red indicators as far as I can see. Let me refresh. Yes, everything green. At the moment, there's no specific violations. Everything is reported very quickly and smoothly. At the time when we recorded the first technical Zoom, some exchanges were actually taking a very long time to return certain values, and all of this response time was more. It was lit up for a very long time. Everything was red, and accordingly we couldn't execute trades on those exchanges. At first we thought it was a problem with the exchange itself, with the response, right? That's when that this was returning data very slowly. No, later we figured out, in fact, it was a server configuration issue. The server simply needed to be configured properly in order to communicate more correctly. So it's not enough to just have a server, it also needs to be properly configured and settled, migrated, so that they're full synchronization with the exchange. Because some of the requests to that exchange's outputs, it might not be a single request, it can be several requests per second, and accordingly a certain QoI is formed, and due to this QoI latency, the response is formed. So the bot itself, look at the further as the questions comes up. accordingly react to its profitable execution of the trade. Also, in reality, this issue is simply that the server needs to be configured better, so that's one of the important element in my opinion. So we briefly just answered that question. Yes, I think that's more than enough. Let's go through the security bots that the company uses. Sure. Regarding security, again, we have a model here. After the first technical zoom, many partners asked what the difference in between arbitrage bots and security bots, since, roughly speaking, there seems to be some similar aspects. Yeah, they're similar, but their functionality is completely different. It's arbitrage bot, still arbitrage bot, of course, but they're separate into security system. Because each of the bots, again, I add the description on the website so you can understand clearly. We won't read everything out now, it would take too long. There's an API connection, accordingly the model's program code exists, API ports are also available. Here, we can see them. Trade allowed, trade prohibited, and when the trade is prohibited, once again, we discussed earlier, if a trade is prohibited, another trade is immediately selected. Accordingly, this trade is not executed, even though we see that the spread per unit is 0.42, there was a violation. That's exactly what security bots are. They are bots responsible for the safety of funds and for the safe execution of arbitrage commands. Yes, arbitrage commands executed by the bot. Accordingly, I can't single out one main bot here. If with arbitrage bots, we distribute them, 3 main ones, 3 secondary ones, and one that control everything, here's the model is slightly different. Each bot controls the other. And in the end, when there is full alignment of the parameters that we set for trading, for arbitrage trading, we see this kind of result. When are no conflicts between the bots, well, okay, here's a small conflict you can see. And even with such seemingly insignificant conflict, the bot signals the trade already cancelled. Again, even though the spread is very good, but we also see below that, for example, 0.35 per unit. Also fairly good spread, and the trade was allowed. We have an indicator, yellow meaning it's under review. Trades are executed, all except the cancelled one. What does it under review mean? A trade under review, that's the trade that we memorize at the moment. That is actually executed. If we see there is no critical moments, then of course the operator, we have 4 operators per day on duty, right? All of this happen automatically, but in any case, there must be an operator who monitors this or at that moment. Because if we just let everything run freely, then even in situations where a trade is questionable, it wouldn't go through. We would lose money. That's why operator is needed, is required. He simply, even at this moment, in his admin panel confirms that the trade, if he sees that there is no critical level, no red indicator, and he also sees the code that was returned, for what reasons, right? Well, not returned by the exchange, but the bot sent a certain request and received a response from exchange. And if it's really negative, then the trade is not executed. And everything is possible, positive, or there's a yellow element, a kind of